welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is the Disney version from the 50s, which starred Kirk Douglas as a star to bring the people in, but essentially it's a Captain Nemo film, so the big actual star is the Nautilus and Captain Nemo, and James Mason plays Captain Nemo. So even though Kirk Douglas is the star on the poster on the credits, it's a James Mason film. And to be fair, Kirk Douglas realises this in the film. Like, he knows he's there for a reason, but it's really a James Mason film, and he's aware of that. So it's fine. He's not trying to take over the film, which is a good thing, because some stars, when they realise they're the star but the other person's going to be a part, sometimes they can damage the film. But this one, not. He knows what he is in this film. You've also got Peter Lorre as the sidekick of the lead professor scientist guy, who is a character actor from that era that is not really remembered much nowadays. But and this character is actually the least interesting character. Peter Lorre, they put him with Kirk Douglas pretty quickly, because they know those two can have fun together in a film, and they can be the human touch in the film. Like, because their mission throughout the film is, let's get off this boat. And that's perfectly understandable. So they provide the drama, while James Mason provides the mystery, and Disney provides the production value. So it's based on the Jules Verne novel, which has been adapted a lot, and it's always getting adapted, and somehow no one's done it better than this. I think because they cast James Mason as Nemo, and it's like, well, after you've seen James Mason as Nemo, everyone else playing Nemo just looks rubbish. Because he's Nemo. He nailed it. And it's that thing where it's like, it's kind of like Christopher Reeve and Superman. Is like, you can do a good Superman, but everyone's going to be thinking of Christopher Reeve. And this one with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, it's always on TV, it's always around. Once you see James Mason as Nemo, it's like, well, he's Nemo. Because he so dominates the film that it's like, yeah, he's Captain Nemo. That's it. That's all there is. So it was a mega production directed by Richard Fleischer, who was a director who had come out of like B movies with like narrow margin, just like black and white movies, and this was his kind of promotion to the big leagues. Now Fleischer, following this, would have an up and down career. He is uncharitably called a hack director by lots of cynical, smart ass critics. But what it is, he was a journeyman director. He did a lot of films that probably weren't up what he wanted to do. And there's probably some films he did what he do. So I think it was a case of, he was a working director. He got material from the studios, and it was like, he wasn't a top level director, but those other ones where the producers had created the material and was like, we need a director who's competent. And he'd be one of those directors who would come in and say, can you come and do this? So he was not like the sexy name of like an Orson Welles or Alfred Hitchcock. He was like the guy below that. But he did a lot of good films during that period that people forget. He did New Centurions. He did The Vikings. He did Soylent Green. These are all films people still watch. He did Fantastic Voyage. He did a lot of serial killer films in the 50s and 60s when they were not the thing. He was really interested in real life serial killers. Like, he did Compulsion, he did 10 Wellington Place. I think those are the films he really wanted to make, and they became more realistic ones. But he did a lot of work. The problem he has is that his later period of his career was with Dino De Laurentiis, when he was doing things like Conan the Destroyer and Red Sonja and Billion Dollar Mystery, which were not good films, and they were not well received. And it was a film that was made by a director who was too old to really, he was still working. He still was wanting to work, because a lot of those old school directors always want to keep working. I mean, someone like John Frankenheimer, who was like a generation after him, but still with that same mentality, was working till the end. A lot of those guys just kept on working. They kept on making films as long as they could. And sometimes it was to the detriment when it was like, you've done your good ones. There's nothing left for you now. You're doing schlock now, and it's like, and it cannot be much fun. But Fleischer was one of those directors who tended to make fun movies. Most of the times when you see his name in a credit, until those 80s films, it's like, there's a good chance it's going to be a fun movie. It's never going to be like intellectually compelling because he was not in charge of the scripts. No, I don't think he really wanted to be. I think he was one of the directors who was kind of instinctively interested in certain subjects, even if he might not have a great overview of what's fascinating about them, but he can make good entertainments out of them, or he can make atmospheric films about them. And even some of his films that weren't well received, like New Centurions at the time, actually look really good in retrospect. It's like they've come a long way as you watch back on them. It's like, yeah, they're flawed, but there's still fascinating things going on in these films. So Fleischer was an interesting guy, but he was always one of those underrated guys who was always going to be that kind of way. So he had big hits, he had massive flops, we went everywhere. But it was perfect for this film because what the film needed was someone who was going to follow what Disney wanted. Disney wanted Captain Nemo, Nautilus, and a fairly straightforward story going around the ocean bed, and at the end, Nautilus blows up. They just wanted a simple adventure film based on this book. They did not want anything else. And that's what Fleischer's good at, so that's how this film worked. The same way in The Vikings, they made The Vikings not long after Kirk Douglas. They wanted a Viking film with over-the-top acting. And he delivered that as well. Now it's another film that people love. And so he knew how to make entertainments. And he knew basically that, okay, we've got James Mason, and one part is basically the kind of semi-villain who has a point, and you've got the two guys trying to escape, who are Kirk Douglas and Peter Lorre, who have a lot of screen presence and know how to use it, and have already, by the time this film was made, both of them had a lot of credits, so everyone knew exactly who they were and what kind of characters they played. Now, Peter Lorre could play villains or good guys, depending on what the script needed, but he was a dependable actor that people liked. And Kirk Douglas could do the same, but he was more of a lead man. But this takes both the playing kind of comic characters who are trying to escape. They can't be too efficient because it would be a case of why haven't they escaped yet if they're that efficient. They have to be flawed characters who are struggling against a guy who's much smarter than they are, and have to keep plugging away, taking every chance they can get to try and get out. So that's what makes it work. It's sort of like James Mason's a cat near the mice, but he's not trying to kill them, he's just trying to play with them and swat them around a little bit and tell them, stop trying to escape, you're annoying me. It's that kind of relationship. And they only ever escape when Mason lets them escape at the end. I mean, they're completely ineffectual. But Fleischer stages everything so well that you're still with them, because there's a chance of escape and the things don't go their way. But it's because they're up against somebody who is one step ahead. And the only time they ever have something that works is the most outlandish scheme, which they say, well, this will not work, but let's try it anyway. And they send some message in a bottle at some point, and then much later in the film it pays off. But it's the one thing they do is like, well, this will never work, but let's try it. But the film is Mason. James Mason is Nemo. Nemo is a great character, but it's a character that's been done badly in a lot of films. He's one of those characters, the build-up to him is always great, and then the execution tends to be very vague because he's a specific character. You need specific things with him to make it work. It kind of is like Superman in a way that if you go a little bit left or right, it can just not work. You have to be very careful with him. And this film is very careful to respect Nemo, because you start off, you don't know who's. It starts off with ships being sunk, and you don't know who's sinking the ships. you find out slowly who it is. They're on a hunting trip. They lead captain on a hunting trip to try and find out what's killing these. They think it's an animal. And then eventually it's sunk. 3 people are brought on board. The 3 main characters, Professor, Peter Lorre, and Kirk Douglas, they're brought on board. And that's when they meet Nemo. And Nemo explains his point of view, which is, like, over the time, he explains, like, these ships are basically transporting, like, munitions to start wars. Like, I'm stopping wars. And you're trying to protect these ships to give people guns to start wars. Human beings are horrible. The world's a cesspool. I'm just going to try my best. And then you find that Nemo kind of came from that world of being slaves. And so he is a real, justifiable anger to the world. And he's also a genius who managed to escape with people who are now his crew. And they're all fighting a good fight against basically the horrible world from their point of view. And also in this, Nemo is creating all this stuff because he's a genius that could help the world. And it's this thing of this guy who is, his brain's going so fast and so full of ideas that the only real problem is humanity has done such horrible things to him early in his life that he cannot really join humanity, and nor does he think humanity will ever do anything good with any inventions he comes up with. So he's a fascinating character, and the advanced certain things that he actually does to make him be able to discover, like, nuclear energy like 100 years before everyone else could, or almost 100 years. I'm not doing math. It's early in the morning. No way. It's probably closer to 70, something like that, 80, but. So basically, he invented all this stuff. He can farm the oceans, but he doesn't want to give the techniques over to man because he thinks man will actually make it worse for everybody. They'll basically consume everything in the oceans as well and savage it, which we kind of are. So, I mean, Nemo's right. Mankind are a bunch of scumbags. But that's what makes Nemo interesting. He's right but wrong. His analysis is right, but his way of doing things is wrong. So the professor wants to learn what he can from Nemo, and notices Nemo as a potential good for the world if they can just get him off this anger. And Kirk Douglas is just like, there's not a chance. He's set in his way. There's nothing you can do to change this. We just need to get off this boat. And Peter Lorre is pretty much with him, thinking, yep, we need to get off this boat. Now Kirk Douglas gets a pet seal throughout the film, which is for the kids, but it's painlessly done, so it's fine. And Kirk Douglas sells it. But mainly it's to take away from the kind of darkness of Nemo. And just the way James Mason delivers the line, delivers his anger, it's civilized. And you feel there's a reason behind everything, but he's still furious with humanity. And it's just a great mix of actor and character. The way that he just delivers that character. So the film just works. The film works beautifully. It's not perfect. It's a little long. It could lose 20 minutes, really. For the kind of version of this film they're making, an adventure film, it does in the middle tend to kind of meander a little bit, because it only really has like an introduction third of try what's the mystery, and then once you get Nemo, it's like let's escape, and the let's escape bit goes on a bit long, but it doesn't matter though because it's fun, and Kirk Douglas makes him feeling to escape fun, and so it's just a delightful film for the family, which brings up stuff like murder and slavery and all that, so the kids can know what happens in the real world. So it just works. It's one of those films that just works. So it's a delight. I'd highly recommend it. I watched on my projector, which is not a big screen thing, but it's a bigger screen you get on TV, and you get the sense of scale of the ship and the sense of why this film is so impressive in its time. It's very interesting watching older films on a projector, because you get a sense of why they were hits at the time. Because special effects, no matter when you make them, even now, the effects we've been making now will look bad in 20 years. Effects always look bad 20 years down the line, and then eventually you get to the point of, I can appreciate the craftsmanship, even though if some of the effects look a bit weird. And that's where I am with a lot of these older films. It's quite interesting to watch what they were doing with very limited resources to suggest this fantastic world. That's why stuff like this or the Ray Harryhausen films has much more charm for me, is like, they were doing a lot with very little. You know, that's very difficult to do, is like, do miracles with very little. It's just a very difficult task to do some of these fantasy worlds with 50s technology. And what they do with it is amazing. And again, because everything's real, the Nautilus is real, they have to do these special effects with giant squids and things. And you can tell this took forever to do, and it was exhausting. And it's like, the actual effort they put into it makes it feel much more interesting. Plus, when you actually see the bigger screen, it looks really impressive. If you've got all the waves and all the sounds, you do get a feeling of, in this film, they used sound really well when there's any action to suggest more than that what the actual effects could do. And by good cutting, they actually make it work. So it's delightful. Go watch it. You can catch it on streaming. Like, I got it on Amazon, but I'm sure you can get it anywhere on streaming. I'm sure if you have Disney Channel, you'll get it on Disney Channel. It's definitely worth watching. It's really good. That's me for now. Right, bye.